Now let's continue with the materials. I'll change views and open the inspector for shaders. In the drawer, all materials of the scene are listed. Most of them were set in the modeler and were transferred to Artlantis. This is quite long, as you can see. It's difficult to find a particular item in it. In the top of the drawer there are some filter options. However, one of them is the eye icon. Once activated, it will select only those materials which are visible in the preview. I deactivate it now to show the rest of the options. Below the eye there is a small list allowing you to organize all items in the drawer in 3 different ways: the default or standard order, alphabetically, or the object definition order. To understand the cube icon, first I'll need to add an object instance to my scene. I'll have to search my catalog, find this chair, and drag and drop it into the room. Now, if we filter the content of the drawer with the cube icon, we'll find only those materials that belong to this instance or any other object instance which would be visible in the preview. And finally, there's a search bar where I can enter any keyword, and Artlantis will collect only those items which name includes that particular word. As you see, my list is shortened, and each item contains the word glass. It's easy to set shaders in Artlantis. I select this parquet to make the settings appear in the inspector, and we can start to review it. We can mix a color to the diffuse of parquet, which has by default realistic settings, as you can see in the preview. I can change the orientation of the parquet, which now is set to 90 degrees, so it is perpendicular to the window. Similar settings can be done right in the preview. This small cross is a kind of anchor point. I can grab the parquet and move it on the surface on which it was applied. The yellow dot will allow me to rotate it. This is exactly the same function we show in the inspector. The third possibility concerns these colored borders of the rectangles. It's possible to grab one of them. I'll grab the red one, for example, and now I can move the material with a fixed orientation given by the red axes. If I wish to align it to an edge of the wall, I simply hold down the Shift key on my keyboard while I'm grabbing it by one of the border lines and move that edge closer. It will automatically detect the edge and align parallel to it. This is a very useful feature whenever we need to position a pattern of a material or just some tiles on a surface. The next sliders are about the behavior of the material. It can be set more or less reflective. The Shininess slider manages the clarity of reflections. If you push the slider towards the maximum, the reflections will be very clear, but if you give it a low value, the reflections will be more and more blurred. The next 2 sliders are about simulating relief to a surface, which may extract information about the image we use for the diffuse of the shader. These are generally set to a general value, but you can change it if you wish. The transparency slider will set the material transparent, and you will see what's below it. For some shaders, these small dice will appear, which makes it possible to reorganize the pattern we use for diffuse. If you feel that there's a strong repetition effect, for example, you just click on the dice, and Artlantis will change the image repetition and orientation randomly. The ambient will simulate a glow of the material. Finally, we'll find a list about the mapping mode. This is dependent upon the geometry on which we map the shader. Each shader can be opened in a shader editor for further editing. This is the icon to continue to this dialog. Materials can be edited and set in multiple ways, as you can see. We should speak about one more shader, a very special one. For this reason, let me add a geometry to this scene, an average cube from the catalog. I'll map on it this particular shader called the neon shader. It's able to cast light, and to see its effect, I'll go to Heliodon Inspector to change the period of the day. Turn it to night when there is no natural light at all, and only the light coming from the neon shader will light the scene. Back to the shader settings, we can set the light power in lumens. And with this, we have finished our review of the materials and how they work in Artlantis.